to another edition of Cards Camp Central, powered by Cox. Craig Grialou and Mike Drecke here at State Farm Stadium, where earlier today, MJ, the team held its annual red and white practice. Typically thousands in attendance, but, well, we know that that's not the case because it was closed to the public, as have all training camp practices. The good news here is the cameras were rolling, and tomorrow night on 12 News, about 8 p.m., a 2-hour TV special hosted by Paul Calvisi, Ron Wolfley, along with Darren Urban, your first look at the 2020 Arizona Cardinals.
How exciting. Just unfortunately, there hasn't been the preseason there, and obviously everyone's trying to stay with protocols so we can get to the regular season. But it was interesting where it kind of reminded me of a preseason game, and it was really a dress rehearsal for the opener when they head to San Francisco or Santa Clara to play the Niners, and they did their introductions. Larry Fitzgerald was funny. He was trying to get the crowd going. DJ Humphries, some coaches were in the box of communication. They did have a halftime, so everything you would think of, great dress rehearsal for the Cardinals, even though it wasn't with 20,000 people.
Exactly, and the good news, DeAndre Hopkins was participating. Now, Kenyon Drake and Max Williams were not, but good to see number 10 on the field. And part of what else you'll see on this 2-hour broadcast tomorrow night, player interviews, post-practice interview with head coach Cliff Kingsbury, plus profiles on DeAndre Hopkins and Kyla Murray, and then a position-by-position breakdown as we get you set for the 2020 regular season. Again, that's all tomorrow night on 12 News, the red and white practice powered by Cox. All right, ahead on today's show, MJ will give his top 3 players with the most to prove here this season. I had a chance to speak with Mason Cole, the Cardinals starting center. We'll touch on what he is looking forward to this season. We'll play a round of hot takes, more practice highlights, and, of course, your questions, what's on the mind of the Red Sea. But quickly, the news of the day, and this was announced, MJ, just a short time ago. The Cardinals have announced that there will be no fans in attendance for their first 2 home games, Week 2 against Washington and Week 3 against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty prevalent around the NFL, and I'm glad they only announced the first 2 home games, Weeks 2 and 3, as you pointed out. Hopefully, if things go according to plan, maybe at some point, not the entire stadium, but select fans, but don't want to get ahead of myself. And that's the key, where you can watch tomorrow night on Channel 12 and then obviously check this team out throughout the entire season.
Yeah, there is the possibility of fans in attendance later in the season, but not those first 2 home games, again, against Washington and the Detroit Lions. All right, let's get back to some action on the field. And how about an unfiltered look at the defensive line?
Don't try to pick it up. Drive through it. Back up some, Zach. Take a step. There you go. Brush your length. Back up some. Make sure we're ringing the bell.
that last shot right there, MJ. Leckie Foetu, one of those players that certainly has been the talk of camp, and to hear his teammates and even his coaches just describe what they call a massive human being.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people got a chance to see it, and obviously you can watch it on video. Go to azcardinals.com with some of the different drills, but you could see how thick he is in the lower body, and then he's got the biggest calves I've seen in a long, long time, and we'll bring it up. He doesn't wear gloves like Miles Brown. Obviously, you know, he's had 5 or 6 nails ripped off throughout his career, but strong guy, and the Cardinals are really excited about that defensive rotation in the interior. And curious to see if they keep 6 or 7, because you want to have a good rotation in the 3-4.
And good to hear the voice once again, defensive line coach Brenson Buckner back with the Cardinals, and to hear him constantly say, ring the bell, make sure you get your arms fully extended to where you get that sled all the way to the end. So great access, and appreciate that from Brenson Buckner and the entire defensive line, which leads us into MJ, your top 3 players with the most to prove here in 2020.
Well, I'm only going to pick 3, and usually we see guys jump from year 1 to 2. I'm going to go with the guy that's been on the Cardinals roster for the last few years, going into his 3rd season, and that's Zach Allen. Zach Allen's a guy that obviously sat last year, was in all the meetings. Obviously, he got all the mental reps, but he also needed to gain weight, and the Cardinals are counting on him. He had over 100 tackles his last year at Boston College. Unfortunately, got injured, and then obviously didn't have a spot for him. But getting stronger, I think he'll be the day 1 starter at left defensive end. And you throw in Corey Peters, and then you throw in a guy like Jordan Phillips, who they're really excited about. But he's a guy that can push the pocket. He's got the weight up a little bit. So I think he's motivated, and he's going to get a chance to play the majority of the snaps. You know, last year Corey Peters played over 70 snaps. I think they're going to try to equal that out, and his biggest competition will be Jonathan Bullard. But, yeah, I think it's time for him to take that next step, and they are counting on him this upcoming season.
It's really unfortunate that Allen was hurt last season, only on the field for 4 games, but certainly, as you say, making that jump from year 1 to year 2. All right. Number 2 on your list of top 3 players with the most to prove here in 2020.
I'm going to go with number 17, Andy Isabella, just from a standpoint of, I think he was overwhelmed last year. I think all 3 rookie receivers were underwhelmed, and maybe because they came from smaller schools, UMass, Iowa State, and Fresno. But Andy Isabella has definitely shown the ability to catch the ball more fluid this year. He's catching it with his hands, bringing it into his body, and it wouldn't surprise me if he gets an opportunity maybe in the return game. I think Christian Kirk's fluid there. But Andy Isabella, great route runner. He has the speed to take the top off the defense. Kyla Murray loves working with him. Larry Fitzgerald told us there's nobody in the wide receiver room that takes more notes than Andy Isabella, and I think he's ready to make that jump. The team is confident. I think he's more comfortable out there, and it obviously starts with their wide receiver coach David Rye and Jerry Sullivan, but I think he's ready to make that next step.
Well, because of where he was drafted in the 2nd round, the second of the Cardinals' 2 second-round draft picks a couple of years back, there is an expectation that he deliver. We did see it in bursts a year ago. Now it's, hey, let's see it for a full 16 games.
And I think it's pretty, we have the consensus on the top 3 receivers, Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, and then you throw in Christian Kirk. You know, 4, 5, and 6 could be open. Now, Trent Sherfield, in my opinion, still runs good routes. He's going to be active on game day, plays on special teams. If Andy Isabella can get a role on special teams, and then we'll see what happens with Keyshawn Johnson, and obviously a guy like Hakeem Butler. Will the Cardinals kick 6 receivers on the active roster, a couple on the practice squad? They are intrigued with a couple practice squad guys, so it's really a numbers game, but I think Isabella's in the running for either 4th or 5th receiver, and if the Cardinals want to spread teams out, he gives you another luxury with that speed down the field to take off the top of the defense.
Yeah, who can forget his 88-yard catch and run for a touchdown right here at State Farm Stadium Halloween night against the San Francisco 49ers. All right, number 3, your top 3. We're at number 3, players with something to prove.
Well, I think we were all really excited when Steve Keim pulled off the trade for Kenyon Drake, and he came in here, you know, played 8 games, and he put up a good portion of yards. He had 8 touchdowns. We go back to that short week on Halloween night when he played against the San Francisco 49ers and what he did in Seattle. Obviously, you'd like to see him do that throughout the course of the year. But now he's going to get 16 games. He's going to be the bell cow. Chase Edmonds will be a change of pace back, and we'll see what happens with Foster and Eno Benjamin. But, he's going to be a big-time focal point of the offense. We know this is a passing league. We know the Cardinals can pass the ball, but they want to set up the pass by being able to run the football. And last year he averaged over 5.2 yards a carry. I don't know if that goes to 4 or 6 guys like Elvin Kamara, averaged a certain amount in the first year and then the second year went down. But he's going to rely on the offensive line, the continuity there. And obviously you're going to have a couple new starters. We think it's going to be Calvin Beachum at right tackle, nothing official, and then Mason Cole, who has experience. But this offensive line is better than they were a year ago under Sean Kugler. And when it comes to Kugler and James Sexton, the running backs coach, they are part of the run game plan. Obviously, Kingsbury calls the play on game day. So I think the line will be better. He'll have more holes. And I'm curious to see, Craig, how much he's involved in the passing game, because you don't want to tip your hand when he's in the game all the time. And then pass protection, we know Kyla gets rid of the ball a little bit quicker. He's going to have to be ready for blitz pickup, if not chip a guy and then go out for a screen pass in the flat.
It'll be interesting to see just how Drake handles being the guy for the first time in his career. We know he could handle an 8-game schedule for the Cardinals like he did last year, but now from week 1 on to week 17. You brought up the offensive line, MJ. Perfect transition. Mason Cole, your new starting center. In fact, he started 2 years ago, last year, sitting on the sidelines with A.Q. Shipley as a starter. But earlier this week, I had a chance to catch up with the former third-round draft pick out of Michigan.
I've got to know, how's married life?
It's been good. The first 5-6 months of marriage kind of locked in our house, but we survived it. It's been good. Couldn't ask for much better first 6 months of marriage.
So no honeymoon yet, correct?
No honeymoon yet. Well, that'll be after the baby sometime. So that'll be on hold, but at least we got the wedding out of the way.
And expecting what, a son in January?
Yep, a baby boy due January 4th.
All right, so is that planning already started, baby-proofing the house and everything? You got a nursery all set?
Oh yeah, that started a long time ago. She's been on top of it. She's done a good job of getting the house ready and the nursery ready, and she's making a lot of those calls. So,
well, congratulations to you and your entire family. All right, let's get to some football here, and the fact that this season ahead of time that you are the starting center. What does that mean, and how much of a burden is that perhaps lifted off your shoulders?
No, it's good. I don't know if it lifts a huge burden off my shoulders, but to hear the coaches have confidence in me, and my ability, and the group, it's huge. Just being able to go out there and play with confidence and play fast, play free, and just do what I do. It's been really good.
2 years ago, you were thrown into the mix as a rookie, but last year, sitting and watching for the first time in your career, even going all the way back to your high school days, what did you learn watching from the sidelines?
In a weird way, that last year was really good for me, to kind of sit back and see the whole picture, see the bigger picture, and see the dynamic of the room and what goes on. It was good. Watching a guy like AQ, an old vet that's played for a long time, played a lot of good football, was huge. He's taught me a bunch, and all the guys have. Playing guard helped me a bunch, I think. Even now playing center, I think guard helped me a lot, because I understand what those guys go through and what they need help with. So it's been really good. I'm really excited for this year.
Is that a surprise that you learned so much, even though you weren't on the field? Because a lot of guys would prefer, obviously, to play as opposed to kind of sitting back.
Right. There's not a whole lot that can replicate playing on the field and learning that way. But in a weird way, this is kind of, I think it was kind of the year I needed. I never really had that redshirt year in college or my rookie year. I was playing, obviously. So sitting back and having that year to sit back, working my body too, get in the weight room with buddies, it was huge for me.
How much stronger, how much bigger are you?
Not much bigger, but, I feel so much stronger. And that's all credit to Buddy. Buddy's done a great job with our programs here, and he's been a huge help for me.
What about that relationship with quarterback Kyla Murray? It's the quarterback, it's the center. You two are joined at the hip, if you will. How has that been going on and off the field?
It's been good. It's been really good. Kyler's a different cat, and it's been good to get to work with him. He's done a really good job this year communicating. I think last year being a rookie, all rookies are a little shy in some way, but now he's come out of a shell. He's doing a really good job leading the offense, and the communication has been great.
Do you see this as something where the two of you can grow together since you're both relatively young?
Hey, I sure hope so.
What about the rest of the offensive line? I know there's, at least from the outside, there's not much thought about with this offensive line. But a year ago, number 10 in the league in rushing and averaged over 5 yards a carry. How much pride do you guys take in running the football?
I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's why you want to play offensive line, is to run the ball. You don't want to go out there and drop back 70 times a game and be in pass protection. You want to run the ball, and it's huge for us, man. We got such a good room. Not only great guys, but I mean, these guys are all professionals in this room. A lot of older guys this year, and watching those guys and how they work, what kind of professionals they are, it's been really good.
Not a lot of turnover in that room. Kelvin Beacham's really the only new face in the offensive line room. How is that competition going at right tackle?
It's been good. Like I said, all the guys in our room are complete professionals, and they come out every day and work their butts off, and they're doing everything they got to do.
Leave me with this, as far as not on the NFL level, but the college level. No Big Ten football this year. What are your thoughts on not being able to watch Michigan?
It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird on Saturdays not turning on the Michigan game when we come home from walkthrough or when we're traveling. Definitely be different, but, we're just living in crazy times, and everyone's doing everything they can to stay safe, but it's going to be weird for sure.
Mason, appreciate a couple of minutes here on Cards Camp Central, powered by Cox. Best of luck to you and the birth of your son as well. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I actually have to amend that last question to Mason, because there is some talk earlier today that there might be Big Ten football. So maybe Mason will be able to watch his Michigan Wolverines on Saturday. But getting back to Cole, back in the starting lineup, remember that rookie year, he was supposed to sit and watch, and it was just unfortunate when A.Q. Shipley went down to the injury in training camp that all of a sudden here's this rookie being thrust into the starting lineup, played every single game, played every single snap, so he's certainly capable of handling that load.
Oh, there's no doubt. And if you go back when he started that year, he went against the Aaron Donalds. He was going against, the Seattle Seahawks front four. Now, Nick Bosa wasn't with the Niners, but he was going against, Solomon Thomas and Eric Armstead there. So, I mean, he's built for it. He's put some weight on in the offseason. Sean Kugler's son played at Michigan, so obviously he's known him for a while. And the Cardinals were thrilled that he was there in the third round. And, obviously A.Q. Shipley last year being a seasoned veteran guy, I think they wanted to go in with a veteran guy with experience, because a lot of times you have to make those calls, especially for a rookie quarterback. So I understood it last year, but it was time to get a little bit younger and more athletic at the position.
So Mason Cole new to the starting lineup on the offensive line, but not new to the Cardinals. This will be his third year as we now look at this offensive line as a whole. Let's play a little hot takes, MJ, all right? I'm going to read a statement. It's either going to be red hot or icy cold. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First hot take. The Cardinals will have one offensive lineman make the Pro Bowl in 2020.
Icy cold.
Icy cold.
And the reason why they say this, and probably the reason why the Cardinals don't get the credit that other teams do, and I'm not going to sit here and ask you who's on the offensive line in the division, is they haven't had a All-Pro or a Pro Bowl player. This unit is based on the 5 to 8 guys that will dress on game day. So continuity and chemistry, it's just unfortunate now. Mike Upati made the Pro Bowl. Lomas Brown back in the day made the Pro Bowl. It's just, you're going to get, when you're talking about all pro, you're talking about the entire league. And there's a lot of good tackles and guards out there. So I would love to be wrong here, but icy cold. I want this unit to, obviously block for Kyla Murray, cut down on the 48 sacks last year with 23 on Murray, and he's going to cut down on negative plays. I want to see them be able to open holes for the running game for the most part. But I think as a unit, they don't get the credit they deserve. But until they put someone in the Pro Bowl or All-Pro, then I can go a different route.
It's the collective unit that has
Correct.
been so strong for the Cardinals last year, which leads us to our second hot take. The Cardinals in 2020 will be ranked higher in rushing than passing.
I don't think people realize, but passing was higher last year.
Rushing was higher.
Rushing
Yes.
because of, obviously, the rushing 5.2.
They finished number 10 in rushing.
I just think with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins and possibly, a guy like Dan Arnold besides the other guys, they want to run the ball, but I think they'll average more in the passing this year. And not saying they're going to throw it 40 times a game. We've watched Cliff over the last year, whatever it takes to win. And when you get the lead in the fourth quarter, the Steelers were really good in their heyday. They would run the ball 7 to 10 times in the fourth quarter. Obviously, you keep your defense off the field, and you're controlling. You really, at that point, you're playing against the clock. So I'm going to go passing this year.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people expect with the head coach with the background of a Cliff Kingsbury, and certainly now Kyla Murray entering his second year. All right, the last hot take centers on the defense. In 2020, the Cardinals will have 2 players with double-digit sacks.
Well, we know one. Now I'm trying to figure out where the other one's coming from. Obviously, Chandler Jones. And they went out and got Devin Kennard. He's averaged about 6.5, 7 sacks. You look at a guy like Jordan Phillips from the defensive line. He had 9.5 last year, small sample in Buffalo. I got to think maybe in sub packages we see Isaiah Simmons. Just off the cuff, I'm going to go with they will have double digits. Now, Chandler may have 15 to 19. If somebody can get to 10 or 12, that would go a long way. I thought they got off to a good start last year with T-Sizzle. Unfortunately, he kind of fizzled towards the end. But I do think a couple years ago when a healthy Marcus Golden and Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden had 12.5, Chandler had 10.5. So I think based on what Vance Joseph wants to do in the defense, man-to-man press coverage, they're going to get more pressure on the quarterback. So I'm going to say that would be a hot take.
Yeah, and it certainly would help to have someone opposite Chandler Jones to kind of alleviate some of those double teams that he's going to get regardless, but maybe just not on every single play. By the way, speaking of Chandler Jones, since 2012, no player has had more sacks than number 55.
Coming soon.
It's that big contract and then gets better on the football field.
Well, I mean, just the way he's take care of his body, you can always count him. In a couple of years ago, when Chandler was putting up sacks, and I think, how I feel, I think sacks can be misleading at times. I'm more interested in hurries, pressures, and knockdowns. Take the quarterback off his spot. Those lead to turnovers. But now he's been able to, learning from Billy Davis, the linebackers coach, what it's like to stab for the ball. And not only is he getting forced fumbles, but the team is getting a fumble recovery. So he hasn't peaked in his career. He's kind of like Gumby out there. He can twist his body. He can turn his shoulder. Quite frankly, there are times he'll drop back in the coverage, but that means somebody else needs to get to the quarterback. I anticipate him to pick up big numbers again this year. One of the leaders on defense, and we talked about it, throughout the course of training camp, when opposing offensive coordinators and quarterbacks are game planning for the Cardinals, when you break the huddle, you got to ID where Chandler Jones is, Patrick Peterson, and I'm going to put Budda Baker in there now. So you got 3 guys, 2, can play in the box, obviously, and then Patrick. So I think the defense will benefit from a pass rush. Again, I'm not fixated on sacks. I want to get more turnovers and get the quarterback off his spot.
And fans will be able to see Chandler Jones tomorrow night, the red and white practice powered by Cox, 12 News at 8 p.m. following playoff hockey. So around 8 o'clock, a 2-hour TV special, the red and white practice powered by Cox. Now, the following night on Sunday, you'll have a chance to relive the NFC divisional playoff game, Cardinals and Packers from 2015, that 26- Sunday, and this MJ, this game had everything you could ask for.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald credit, but it was kind of going back and forth. It wasn't like the one game against the Packers they had, but that team was, Carson was playing like an MVP that year. Obviously, they go to the NFC Championship game, but that was anytime you get a quarterback that, we saw Kurt Warner do it, where you just don't throw very many incompletions and you have touchdowns. But the fact that they called that, you don't really see veteran quarterbacks step across their body to throw it across the field, and we know the rest is history.
Yeah, Palmer's first playoff win, 26-20 Cardinals beat the Packers in the 2015 NFC Divisional Playoff game. It will be rebroadcast on Sunday, and part of the rebroadcast hosted by Paul Calvisi will include some behind-the-scenes insight from then quarterback Carson Palmer. Always fun to look back at some of those memorable games, and the Cardinals certainly in 2015 had several memorable games.
Yeah, and you just remember when the Cardinals got down there in the first play they didn't score, but then they had used the Oki shuffle. And I want to say when Carson was on the sidelines with Arians, like what do you want to do? Call the play. And he was very stoic, and he was not overwhelmed what they were going to try to do on that drive.
Yeah, the first play, Carson Palmer to Larry Fitzgerald all the way down to the 5-yard line, and then from there, the Oki shuffle, 5-yard touchdown. Fitz, by the way, in that game, 8 catches for 176 yards and a touchdown.
Can they get this team and him back to the postseason? Because in 2008, that was his coming out party. I mean, he became a household name, and I don't know if anybody's going to break that record, considering the Cardinals won the division, but they played in wild card weekend. A lot of teams that are 1 or 2 seeds in the past, they usually only play 3 games if they win the Super Bowl or get there. So with 4 games, I think it's going to be tough to duplicate that for a long, long time.
Now, Fitz still with the Cardinals. Patrick Peterson still with the Cardinals. Just a handful of players, just a couple that are still with the team even 5 years ago. When you talk about Patrick Peterson, certainly 2019 was not a great season for him, and that's what we've come to expect out of number 21, and that is greatness. Does he have something to prove here this season? Well, we do know he is very focused here in training camp.
Hey, Pat, how big of a chip do you have on your shoulder, and what do you feel like you need to prove this season?
I don't necessarily feel like I need to prove anything.
Good stuff there from Patrick Peterson. All right, let's get into what the Red Sea wants to know. Fan questions, MJ. Got a couple of them. One talking about what we talked about previously, the offensive line. At Mondo1121 wants to know, how much has the offensive line improved? Do you see a set lineup, or do you see a couple of possible changes coming?
Well, that's one unit that you really don't want to be shuffling guys in and out. They're going to go in there with their 5 starters. Across the board will be Humphreys, Pugh, Cole, and then you throw in Sweezy, and we think that it's going to be Calvin Beachum. And then you can dress 8 linemen this year, and so I think Max Garcia could be one of your interior guys. I think Justin Murray, who played in 12 games last year, he started in 12 games, played in 14, so they'll have some depth there. But that's a unit you want to be able to say they played all 16 games, they played over 1,000 snaps, so that's one unit you want continuity. And at the end of the day, Sean Kugler, the offensive line coach, is going to play the best 5 guys, and their job is to open up holes and protect the quarterback. So I say if that unit can stay healthy, we should see the same guys for the entire season.
All right, last question from the Red Sea. Chris Streveler, a third-string quarterback. Where do you see his role with the team? And there was a lot made about his signing in the offseason.
Yeah, because of Tyson Hill, I mean, he can do a little bit of everything. I think he can catch the ball. I don't know if he has the speed to run the ball. He's a very athletic quarterback. He's learning a new system here. He's been with the team in the offseason with virtual. if the Cardinals would only keep 2 quarterbacks on the active roster, I think he's a viable option for the practice squad. He would have to clear waivers. Again, there's not a lot of tape out there. There's no preseason game. And this year you can have 16 guys in the practice squad. So I think a lot of guys we hear that get cut, the Cardinals want to bring them back because they know their system. And because of what's going on in the league with the testing, there could be a week you're going to need some guys from the practice squad. I don't know if we'll see him this year, but I think he could be a viable backup down the road.
So we'll see. Wait and see, Red Sea. Appreciate the Bird Gang checking in. Get your questions in every single show here. Hashtag Cards Camp Central. And that brings us to, again, a reminder tomorrow night, the Red and White practice powered by Cox. 12 news following playoff hockey. So about 8 p.m., a 2-hour special hosted by Paul Calvisi, Ron Wolfley, along with Darren Urban. Your first opportunity to see the 2020 Arizona Cardinals in action, albeit a practice. Don't forget, though, one more full week of training camp, 2 weeks left to go before we get to week 1 and that visit to the San Francisco 49ers. MJ, appreciate it here. Appreciate everyone's hard work behind the scenes. Paul Calvisi will be in this seat next week, next Tuesday, for another edition of Cards Camp Central powered by Cox. As we leave you here on this Friday, I want to feature the work of team photographer Derek Spencer. Consider it training camp through the lens. Have a great weekend, everyone.